Joaquin El Chapo Guzman.
El Chapo has escaped from a maximum security prison in Mexico
after disappearing from view of prison security cameras Saturday night
and discovered a rectangular hole in the cell shower almost a mile long.
There you go. The talk is El Chapo. It's now his second escape. His real name is Joaquin Guzman. He's Mexico's most notorious drug lord, slipping through a mile-long tunnel which somehow ran right underneath his maximum security jail cell. There was a motorcycle supposedly waiting for him there, and this is where we will start this edition of the Newsmax Now Roundtable. And joining us right now is radio television host Ellis Henican. Also rejoining us is Mike Warren, staff writer for the Weekly Standard. Thank you both for being here with us. And Mike, I know this is a little bit of a departure from your area of expertise, but there are some interesting correlations here between what's happening in politics now and the El Chapo escape. Miranda, take it away.
There's some interesting, you're talking about like Trump with his illegal immigration? Okay, so Donald Trump, you know, he jumped in on the news,
well, not
tweeting
just Trump,
out.
But we'll start there.
Well, we'll start with Trump because, you know, Trump likes it when we start with Trump. Now, Mexico's biggest drug lord escapes from jail. This is the tweet that he sent out. Unbelievable corruption, and USA is paying the price. I told you so. The timing of this, you have to admit, is a little impeccable, is it not?
Well, Trump is talking about how this is, you know, shedding light on one of the things that he continues to talk about.
But he thinks he's going to come here. I don't think that's
Ellis,
gonna
I wanted to get your take on this. I mean, do you think there is a limit to where Donald Trump can go by taking these events and using them for his presidential run?
No, there's always a big audience for dumb, right? I mean, here's the reality, right? You can't judge Mexico by El Chapo any more than you should judge America by Donald Trump. You know, we're not 300 million obnoxious, bloviating, ego-starved nitwits, and Donald Trump is. And so you can't judge Mexico and assume that there are 100 million or however many people in Mexico, people like El Chapo. It's just plain dumb.
Well, then let me ask you this, Mike, because why does this seem to be working for Trump right now, then, if what Ellis says is true?
Well, it seems that Trump is sort of getting the half-truth of this story when he's talking about this. I mean, a lot of, again, I guess I have to say this, the language that he uses is offensive and inappropriate for a presidential campaign, but he is speaking a truth here about how corrupt Mexico is. I mean, if anybody thinks that El Chapo got out, you know, by his own volition, you know, like in Shawshank Redemption, just ticking away against the stone, they're kidding themselves. I mean, this was clearly an instance of corruption within the Mexican government. They're not watching him closely enough. He somehow gets away to this half-made home from this tunnel near the maximum security prison. I mean, it just shows you sort of what kind of country is below our southern border, and that is in many ways is sort of encouraging its own citizens to come across our border into our country. I think he's getting to something here, but he's not quite getting the full story, which is why ultimately Trump is not going to go anywhere.
But Ellis, whether you agree or disagree with Trump, clearly the man is starting dialogue. He has everyone talking about immigration, an issue that a lot of people don't want to talk about. Can you give him a little credit for that?
Well, absolutely. Listen, he's the dominant candidate in the Republican field, which has about 4,000 people running, and he's the #1 guy at this point, right? Everybody is reacting to him. Everybody is following him. He is either at the top or near the top of most of the polls. He's the man. I mean, there's no denying that.
I mean, everyone was waiting, including this man sitting right next to me, for weeks, if not months, for Hillary Clinton to speak. She finally does her interview. No one cared. It was all about what Donald Trump was saying and doing, and he drew thousands to these venues in Phoenix and in Las Vegas over the weekend. So clearly he's doing
you're
something.
Absolutely right. Here's the mistake, I think, though, that some of the commentators are making. Donald talked in Phoenix about this silent majority out there that is just ready to embrace the most extreme of his views that he's articulated. It really isn't a silent majority. What it is a very noisy minority. And that when you have a situation where there's so many candidates in the race, you can elbow your way to the front on a rather small percentage. I mean, if you can find something that 15% of core Republican voters like, you're going to lead the field. And that's what's happened. I mean, there's a very passionate group of people out there who believe a lot of dumb stuff that Donald Trump is saying. And so it puts him on top of the race. I mean, that's just politics. Give him credit for that much.
So, Mike,
let me stay there.
Let me ask you this, though, because I asked this to Michael Barone earlier as well. Where does the Trump train stop then? Because there just seems to be a lot of momentum behind it.
You know, that is a
we might
really
be seeing,
good question, John.
Well, I think we're seeing it stop here, right? I think we're at the peak Trump level at this point, because if you look back a couple polls ago, there was they asked the question, you know, what if you're a Republican voter, who would you not see yourself voting for, or you know, would you see yourself not voting for Jeb or Rubio or these other folks? I think the highest percentage of Republicans said Trump was the one who they would not vote for. I think it was 57%. So he's hitting 15, 16% now. Maybe he gets to 20, but you know, all these things have a way of sort of topping out, and I think that's what we're seeing with Trump. He is channeling some of that anger, but there's a whole bunch of other candidates. I think if this were, you know, 4 or 5 Republican candidates in the race and Trump were number 1, Republicans might have a reason to start freaking out. At this point, though, there's so many of them, and he's just getting the most attention right now.
All right, Mike, we're going to leave it there. We'll have you both back.
Really
we'll let you wrap up here on the other side of this commercial break. We'll be right back. And we welcome back our roundtable discussors, I should say, Ellis Henican, joining us, as well as Mike Warren, writer for the Weekly Standard. Good to have both of you guys back with us. Mike, let's go ahead and let you wrap up on what you're trying to say. I'm sorry we had to cut you off, but we got these hard out times we got to deal with. Go ahead, wrap up.
No, I was simply saying that that Donald Trump is sort of speaking to a group of people who feel that they're angry. They want to see somebody, you know, fighting for them. But ultimately, he's going to hit a ceiling. I think he may have already been hitting that. You're
basically echoing what Carly Fiorina was saying as well. That just hitting that nerve. Right.
We may have achieved maximum Trump, as Mike would say there. But let's move on and talk about someone who you might think has a better chance, maybe not, of winning the GOP nomination. That's Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker, joining the race officially today, announcing his candidacy, as they like to do, through a new web video. Let's take a look at that.
When people ask me, how do you appeal to Tea Party folks? I said, I was the original Tea Party in Wisconsin.
Now I'm running for president to fight and win for the American people.
Well, you mentioned that, Mike, fighting and winning for the American people. Scott Walker not as passionate maybe as Donald Trump, but where does he fit in the ever-expanding field of GOP contenders here? Can he push through all the noise?
I think he's got a shot. We saw this earlier when he sort of started his exploratory phase, and he gave this great speech in the sort of late winter in Iowa and shot up in the polls. And then as other people got in, you know, he sort of fell back into the middle. Look, Scott Walker has won 3 elections in the last 6 years. He's got sort of a nationwide network of conservatives and Republicans, and I would say a record that he's going to be pointing to on the trail. The question is, can he break out of the pack? He does have a little bit of a sort of white bread, not that exciting persona, but I also think he's got a kind of a regular guy persona that might be able to push through. He's not going to wow anybody. He's not going to, you know, have some kind of rock star persona. But
he does ride a Harley, though.
Maybe people will be tired of that.
He does ride a Harley.
He does kind of look like Fonzie on the Harley, though, a little bit.
So, Governor Scott Walker, now in the race, but it doesn't seem his family is standing by him on all of his political views. His sons Matt and Alex both support same-sex marriage, and here's what they had to say about their father calling the Supreme Court ruling on same-sex marriage a grave mistake.
Like any family, we had disagreements. He just explained his position, and that was it.
Matt and I aren't necessarily changing his stances on any issues.
Did you try?
No, we respect his opinion on things.
Ellis, is this going to be an issue for him?
I like the kids. It's like, yeah, we respect the old fart. This is a generational. I mean, it's a generational thing, right? I mean, go poll young Republicans. You know, the solid majority of them are in favor of same-sex marriage. I mean, it seems to me the strength that Walker has, and Mike was alluding to this a little bit, is that he's won in what is really pretty much of a blue state. You know, he has found a way through, you know, beating hard on public sector unions, which is probably his signature issue, and some abortion stuff as well. He has been able to get himself elected in a state that it's not that easy for statewide Republicans to win, and that's to his credit. He also has the advantage of having pretty good organization in Iowa, which doesn't matter as much as it might have in some previous years, but it's still the first time large numbers of folks get out and cast caucus ballots. And so, you know, no, he's got as much chance as probably 5 or 10 others.
Well, Mike, I want to ask you this question because Ellis mentioned this. You know, you look at, there is a huge generational gap between the way young Republicans feel about gay marriage, and
that's true.
I don't want to say older Republicans, but I guess I have to use that term there. But when you really do talk to millennials and the kind of millennials that are actually willing to go out and vote and pay attention to political campaigns, they say, yeah, it'd be nice if we could all have gay marriage, which we have now. They're not going to really pay attention to that. When they go to the polls in 2016, the millennials I talk to are worried about having Medicare when they turn 65, or saving Social Security, or having ballooning tax rates, or paying off their student loans. Is that type of stuff really going to matter, or are these Republican candidates going to speak to this younger generation of voters talking about economic issues?
Well, I don't think gay marriage as an issue is going to decide how a young person is going to vote or not. I think most people have made up their minds. There's this sort of idea that there's a way for Republicans to get the young vote. I wrote a review for the Wall Street Journal last week about a book that claimed to do this. That the GOP has to embrace gay marriage and Uber and all these things. Look, I think if you're a young person who lives in the city, who has got sort of, you've got gay friends, you support gay marriage, you take Uber a lot, you're probably going to vote Democrat. If you're a young person who's got a young family, married, got a job, and you're worried about your future, you'll look at Republicans as well as Democrats, no matter what their position on gay marriage is. I don't think it's going to be the issue. I think the economics and also foreign policy are going to be some deciding issues for young people, just as they are for other generations.
That's right. You can't say it enough, guys, but it's the economy, stupid. Normally is in every single presidential election, with a few exceptions out there. I want to thank you both for being with us. Mike Warren, Ellis Henican, great to see you both. We'll have you back very soon.
Thanks.
All right. All comes down to the dollar.
Not necessarily the dollar, but how Americans feel about their bottom lines. More coming up here. We're going to take a look at some of the hottest trending stories on the web, and you'll be shocked who we're talking about.